Thank you everyone for inviting me this evening. It's nice to be here with you all. It's been a long time, as Gary and I were saying, since I've been to visit you in person. So it's nice to have the opportunity to chat with you all this evening, especially after we've just recently done some significant updates to our MyScreeningReportcom interface. And so that's a lot of what I'll be sharing with you this evening. I did want to just kind of go over a review of what My Screening Report is, how it can be a useful tool in your rental business for anyone who may not be familiar. So I'll just take a brief few minutes to review that. And then what I was planning to do is to go through the process of setting up a landlord account through our new My Screening Report interface, which we launched mid-January of this year. And what your landlord dashboard would look like as a user, how you can utilize it, how you invite an applicant to apply, what the process looks like for the applicant, and kind of give you a complete overview of everything. And then at the end, what we can do is, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to go back and we can answer any questions or anything that you may have experienced already that you're having a question about along the way, if that sounds good for everyone.
Yeah, so if you guys have questions, just please enter them into the chat box and we'll go through them at the end of her presentation.
Perfect. Okay, so let me grab my presentation here. And okay, so can you all, it looks like you should be able to see my screen. Oh, let's pause.
Yep.
Okay. Zoom share, there we go. It said it was paused. Okay, there we go. Okay, so MyScreeningReport.com is a tenant screening product that is produced by MoCo Incorporated. For those of you who may be familiar with MoCo, MoCo's been around since 1989, I believe, doing tenant screening. And we launched MyScreeningReport.com in 2009. And since then have done a few updates to it along the way as we have sort of learned how things work and what works for landlords and renters and what needs to be tweaked. And so we've tried to do improvements along the way. And that's one of the things I'll show you today. But one of the things that's unique about MyScreeningReport.com, it is an online tenant screening report, but it does allow landlords to create an account for free. And it just takes a couple of minutes. And as soon as you set up your account, you have immediate access to start screening. So you don't have to go through the what's often required compliance process to obtain tenant screening. A lot of times to get what we call traditional tenant screening, you have to fill out a bunch of paperwork and show a business license and have a site inspection of your rental office and jump through a lot of hoops to get access to tenant screening for good reason, but it can be inconvenient, and it can also be hard for independent rental owners who maybe don't have a large number of rental properties in their portfolio to comply with the requirements. So this is an opportunity to gain access to important comprehensive screening without having to go that route. And the reason you're allowed to do that is because this is what we refer to as an applicant initiated screening report. So even though you are the landlord and you're kind of driving the bus, you're inviting your applicants to apply. When the applicant fills out their application, they're the ones that are paying for and ordering their report. And in doing that, that allows you to get past the requirement of the compliance process. So it just takes a couple of minutes to set up, as you'll see in a few minutes when we go through the demo. A couple of things about our newest update that I did want to share. The new platform now has an applicant tracking system. So when you invite applicants to apply, you can see where they're at from beginning to end of the process. You can see when they've accepted the invitation and have filled out their application. You can see when they've paid for their report and authenticated their identity. And then you can also see when the report's been completed and shared back to you. Another part of the process that's an update is that we have included access to landlords to the online application and all of the information that the applicants provide. Previously, that wasn't available. And now you have, you'll receive a copy of the online application, and that will be stored in your landlord dashboard for 5 years. So you have that there for your records. And another big update is that the report sharing, when the applicant shares back to the landlord, has become much more simplified. And I'll show you kind of what that looks like in a moment, but there have been bumps along the way previously with applicants trying to share back with the landlord and not sending it to the right account, and it kind of just sitting there in our system and not reaching the landlord when they need to view it. So those are some of the specific updates. And now what I think would probably be best for everyone is to just go ahead and launch into what this looks like and how the process works. And then we can do questions in a few minutes. So I'm going to just real quickly stop sharing and then reshare to a different screen. Okay. All right. So what we're looking at here is our sign up page. If you've previously used My Screening Report in the past with our old platform, you will need to set up your new landlord account with My Screening Report. It just takes a couple of minutes to do, but you'll need to get set up in the new platform. If you've never used My Screening Report before, this is the place that you're going to come to as well. Once you've signed up, then you have a separate login link that you'll always reference. One thing I really quickly want to point out, and we'll revisit this again at the end, is that when you do sign up for My Screening Report, you want to make sure that you're using the custom sign up link for BROA. And the reason for that is because My Screening Report is partnered with BROA, and so BROA receives credit for the reports that are ordered, and we help. That's sort of our partnership that we have, and it helps support the association. So I will post that link in the chat, and I believe Gary, you had updated it on your website as well. But
that's correct. Yep.
Yeah, I will make sure to post it in the chat for everyone as well at the end of the presentation. So you'll want to make sure that one thing that you can tell right here is it does have BROA in the URL. That's kind of how you know. You don't want this demo part in, but this is my demo link, but we'll make sure you get set up on the right link. And if for some reason you've set up your account and you didn't create your account with the BROA link, before you start using MSR, let me know and we can rectify that for you. I can delete that account and have you get started with the correct link. So we want to make sure that the partnership is supporting the association. So when you go to sign up, you're going to go ahead and enter your name. That can be your LLC, it can be your rental company name, it can be your personal name. This page is for your company information. So I'm going to just do test landlord. And then you're going to enter contact information. How many ones do I have there? As you can see, I've done this a few times. And we're going to do an email address to set it up. You need to have an email address associated with your accounts. Okay. So I've got my name, phone number, address, and email and password. This is what my login credentials will be when I log into my account. Account created, log in. I'm going to go ahead and enter my credentials. And the first thing it's going to do the first time I log in is it's going to ask to verify my email address. So the system has automatically generated a verification code. And can you all see my screen as I'm switching tabs here?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this is the verification code. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it back into my screen to verify my email address. And it's going to launch me into the identity verification process. Again, this is exactly the same as setting up a landlord account in our previous platform. It just looks a little bit different. The purpose of this for folks who aren't familiar is to verify that you are who you say you are and that you do have permissible purpose for obtaining tenant screening reports. This is the only compliance type piece that you do have to go through. So when you begin the process, some people do get a little alarmed because it does ask for personal information. It asks for your name, your social security number, and your address. The information that you enter there, that data is not stored anywhere in our system. It is simply used for that moment to authenticate your identity. And what the system is doing, we use a product from Experian called Precise ID. And it's taking a snapshot of the data that you entered and it's matching it to your Experian consumer credit profile. And what that does is then it generates a series of personal identifying questions for you to answer. And when you answer those correctly, the system then understands that you are who you say you are and it lets you proceed in finishing your account. So I just wanted to clarify that you do have to enter your social security number. We are not pulling your credit. It's simply taking a snapshot of your consumer credit profile and verifying your identity. And again, we're not storing that data anywhere. So when you begin the process, you're going to agree to terms and conditions as a user of MyScreeningReport. This is information about the Vantage score, the credit score that we use. And then you're going to enter your user data. One thing to mention on the sign up page, if you used your LLC or your business address or your rental address or an address other than your personal home address, you want to make sure that you're going to change that information because this screen right here, again, is just verifying your identity. So you need to make sure that you're using your personal information there. And you're going to agree to the information and it will populate some questions for you to answer. You don't have to get 100%, but you have to get most of them right to proceed. And once you finish, then the next step is to finish setting up your account. One thing that's nice with this new system is that you set up security questions and you have a little bit more flexibility in case you happen to forget your username or your password. The system will work with you to generate security questions to allow you to access your account. We also have more flexibility with this system. So in the past, when people have had issues with their password, we have had no oversight to help people reset their passwords or reset their accounts previously. And that has changed significantly. So if you do forget your user credentials for any reason, we can absolutely help you recover those. And it's a lot quicker and easier than it has been in the past. So that's something we're also very excited about. I'm going to just set these up real quick. So I created my security questions. And now it's going to direct me to my dashboard. So this is what your dashboard looks like. When you log in, if you don't see the BROA logo over here, then and you see the My Screening Report logo instead, then that means you didn't sign up through the BROA URL. So that's an indicator, another indicator to let you know that you're at the right spot. This is the landing page. Whenever you log in, this is where you will land, and it's where all of your applicant profiles will live. It's the pending tab, and then there's an archived tab. So applications will live here until you choose to archive them to the archive tab. It really doesn't matter if they're archived or pending. It's just an option for you if you want to keep your inbox organized. Another thing I would like to point out before we move to screening applicants is some admin options that you have here. So you can go to the admins tab here and you can add your email address if you want to get notified when the application is started by the applicant. And you can also put your email address in this box if you want to get the notification when the application is completed. Another thing that's nice is if you have somebody else who's handling some of the process and you want them to get a notification, you could enter their email address in here as well. They won't be able to log into your account because this is an individual account. But if you're having somebody help you with the process, you can add additional email addresses to receive notifications. Or maybe you're juggling multiple email addresses and you want to set up your account with one email address, but you want to get notifications somewhere else. This is where you can enter those email addresses to get notified there. You can also, if you would like to change your password for any reason, you can go into users, this tab here on the left, select your name, and you can change your password. You could also update your username if you wanted to. It's automatically defaults to be your email, but you could update that information there. You could also change the email address that you want your account to be associated with. So there's a number of things that you can do that you now have control over that you didn't before. Another tab that I wanted to show you is the properties tab. This allows you to kind of organize your rental properties if you're screening for more than one rental unit. If you want to, you can organize them by rental unit. So when you first sign up, the system automatically sets up one property, and that one property defaults to the name that you used when you set up your account. But you can go in and you can edit that name. So I click on the property name and I can go to this edit tab and I can change this to say Lake City House, let's say. This is where the address is and I can save that. So now I have this property here. I can even upload a picture if I wanted to. I can go back, and if I have more than one property, I can add another property. And I can also differentiate if it's a multifamily property, single family, or generic. If you do a multifamily or a single family, it gives you the opportunity then to say what the square footage is of units or how many bedrooms and that sort of thing. Just going to go generic here and we'll go duplex. So I'll create another property just so I can use that to show you how you can select which property you're inviting an applicant to apply for when you go to invite applicants to apply. Okay. So now let's say we are ready to invite applicants to apply. One thing that I do want to point out, especially to previous users of my screening report, before applicants had the ability to create their own applicant account, and then they could apply, and then they could send an invitation to you to view the report at a later time, and the system would generally connect that report to your landlord account if you already had it, or it would initiate you to set up an account so that you could view the report. Because we have made a lot more transparency with the landlord to be able to go through the applicant tracking system, to have more access to what's going on through the process. We have had to make it so it's an invitation only system, which means that an applicant can't just go to My Screening Report and launch their own application. They need to be invited by their prospective landlord. The plus side, the downside is that people aren't used to that. And that's okay. Change is hard and it's going to take a little getting used to, but there really is a lot of benefit to being an invitation only. It allows you to have more control over who's applying to your rental and to be able to see the process all the way through. It also allows you to assure them that they are ordering the correct report. Quite often what would happen is that the applicant would initiate the process on their own and choose their report, and they would order the wrong one. And we'd have to go back and ask them to pay the difference in the cost of the report or refund them and upgrade or downgrade the package. The way that it works now is that you as a landlord are going to invite the applicant to apply and pre-select the package that they will be ordering. They don't have the option to change the package, which is really helpful. So I'll show you what that looks like right now. Let's just launch right into this application process. So I have an applicant who's interested in screening. I'm going to go over here to the new application button and select invite. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to choose which property they're going to apply to. So let's say they're interested in our single family Lake City house. And we're going to order the full meal deal comprehensive with criminal reports. So that's the one I want them to order. I'm going to select that package for them. And I'm going to enter their name. And I'm going to enter their email address. This one, and send an email invitation. So let me hop on over to the applicant's email. Oops, did I just stop sharing? I think I did. I can just get this. There we go. There we go. Okay. This is the applicant invitation. So it's coming from the name of the rental property. Dear applicant name, you've been invited to fill out a questionnaire at this rental, and then they're going to go ahead and select the apply now button. So we're going to now leave the process of the landlord for a moment, and we're going to go over to what it looks like as an applicant. I'm going to click the apply now, and this is going to launch right into the applicant profile. So the first thing that they're going to do is set up a password so that they can get back in when it's time to look at their report and share it with you. This also, setting up a password, allows them to fill out the application, but if they need to take a break, they need to stop to go get more information, or their screen time's out for any reason, this allows them to log back in and pick up the process at the place that they exactly left off previously. That's another huge improvement from our previous interface. Before, an applicant had to, if they left the process, they would have to start all over again, from ordering their report to going all the way through the process. So this is helpful for the applicants. I'm going to go ahead and set up a password. And as soon as I create my password, it's going to launch me right into the online application. First, I'm going to have to create my signature, which is what they use when they sign the application. So they can customize that if they want. They can choose from a number of fonts, or they can draw their signature instead if they prefer. Okay. Here are their terms and conditions that they're agreeing to. And their disclosure, it lets them know what their rights are as an applicant, and how to obtain information if they think that there's something wrong on their report. And then it launches into the online application. I do want to just pop back over here real quick to the landlord page, because I want to sort of show you what it looks like as they go through the process. So one of the things that you can see is that back in the landlord account that we created, here is the applicant profile. This is the applicant that we invited to apply. It automatically creates an applicant profile for your dashboard. And again, this will live in your dashboard for your records for 5 years. And you have a quick view here of the process. You can hover over each one of these little icons and it kind of tells you where you're at. I'm just going to refresh and make sure it's giving us the right information. So because I haven't filled out any of the application yet, it's not doing anything. But if I would have completed the application, this will turn green. And each time you've done something that you've completed, it turns green. You can also click on the applicant's name and get a little bit more information on the process as well. So I'll toggle back and forth a little bit just so you can kind of see sort of what that looks like as we go through. Going back to the online application, this is the first page. It allows the applicant to enter any information specific to the rental property. None of the information on this page is required, but they certainly can enter it if they want to. And then it's going to begin asking for their personal information, name, social security number, date of birth, and email address are all required. For the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and just auto-populate these fields. And our next screen here is addresses. The current address is the only address that is actually required. We do also ask for a previous address, and they can add previous addresses on their own as well. And I believe they can add up to 5 previous addresses. One thing, if somebody doesn't have a previous address, what will happen? Just to show this example. Date. All right. So if I don't enter a previous address and I go to the next screen, it's going to pause and it's going to say, you didn't finish entering some information here. If somebody doesn't have a previous address to enter, they can check this box and it will allow them to go ahead and proceed. The reason that we do this is because we're trying to get as much information as possible, but we also realize that time is of the essence on both sides of the application. And so we want to help them go through the process as quickly as possible. We're also able to obtain previous addresses. So if they don't enter a previous address, then we will see addresses that are associated on their credit report. And we do also pull what's called a social security number trace, which is gives us a list of addresses associated with their social security number. So if we see addresses on there, then that also helps us do a more extensive screening. It's just helpful if they give us the information up front, of course. Here is the employment page. I'm going to just go ahead and auto-populate. Again, they can add multiple employers and other sources of income. This is a little bit more robust also than our previous application on the old interface. And the next part of the application that we do ask for that we haven't previously asked is we ask them to list pets if they have any and vehicles. And the reason we didn't previously ask this information is because the landlords weren't getting copies of an actual application. So this isn't useful information to us when we're screening, but it's certainly useful information to you as the landlord. So that's why we've added it into the online application. And then also an important piece of information, emergency contact information. They can add additional emergency contacts, but we do ask for at least one. And then these are also the questions that are asked typically on a paper application. So they're also, of course, included in our online application. And as soon as I've completed the online application, it's going to ask me to sign with my electronic signature that I set up at the very beginning. And then it's going to move me to the payment page. And I just want to pop back to your landlord profile here, just to show you what I was talking about the transparency of the process. So now you can see that the application is complete. because this is turned green. Also, if you click here, you can see that this application is complete, but we can see that the applicant has not yet paid for their report. So I know as a landlord, it would be helpful to know where things are in the process. So I do think that that's a big plus. Okay. And we do accept, Visa, MasterCard, American Express. They can also use gift cards, debit cards, as long as they have the MasterCard or Visa logo on them, just like in the old system. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pay. As soon as I pay, the system will auto-generate an email receipt to my email address. And as soon as I pay, now it's going to ask me as an applicant to verify my identity. This is really important because we need to make sure that the information that they are sharing on their online application belongs to the person. Otherwise, this wouldn't be a very helpful report for you all. So this process looks exactly like it looks for the landlord. We use the exact same system. So they are going to agree to their terms and enter their data to go ahead and authenticate their identity. Answering their questions. And as soon as they answer their questions, it takes them to a page where they can automatically view their credit report. This is a new part of the process. Before, MoCo report or MyScreening Report reports are not instant, and that's because we don't just return a bunch of data. We have investigators who look through the report and make sure that we're checking for accuracy and verifying the information that we're returning is complete. And we also, if we're doing the rental and employment verifications, of course, the reports aren't available right away. So the credit portion is immediately available to the applicant. And the applicant needs to look at their credit report and verify it for accuracy. And as soon as they've looked at their report, MoCo gets an order for their background screening. Because this is a demo, it's auto-completing to the background report. But as soon as they've looked at their credit report, MoCo or MyScreening Report will begin working on the criminal and eviction and rental and employment verifications if that was ordered. So once the background check is completed by us, the applicant will receive an email notification letting them know it's complete. Let's see if I can show you without sharing, stopping my screen share. Okay, so these are the email notifications that have come to the applicant. There's their receipt of payment. And then this is the email letting them know that their report's complete and they can log in. It's changed the name here because I was auto-filling the demo information. But if they click on this button here, they're going to be able to go back in and log in with the password that they created. And now they can look at their background check. And then it automatically shows a button to say share your reports. So previously what would happen is the applicant would then have to go find the invite landlord to review the report button. The new system pops up this green share your reports button. I'm going to click this button right now and the report is automatically shared to the landlord that invited me to apply. I don't have to enter an email address and make sure I got the right email address. I don't have to worry about any of that. So I have automatically now shared it back to the landlord who invited me to apply. One thing about MyScreening reports is that they are reusable, which means that the applicant for 30 days can now share them with as many people as they want without having to buy their report again. So if I don't get accepted to this rental that I was invited to apply for, I can log back in and I can share with someone else as an applicant. I can click that link here and I can enter an email address of someone else, maybe another landlord that I want to share the report with. This landlord doesn't have to have an account with My Screening Report, but they do have to authenticate their identity before they can view the report. So that's just something to be aware of. So let's go back now to the landlord account that we set up here a few minutes ago. And I will show you here, I've got as the landlord, here's the email notification letting me know that my applicant has shared their report with me. So I can use this link to log in, or I can use the login link that I probably have saved in my browser to get back into my account. And when I go to log in, this is going to again be my landing page on my dashboard. And I can see now that this applicant has, all these things are green, they've completed the process. So I'm going to click on their name and it's going to open up their profile. And I can see, before we look at the report, I do just want to show you the application here that is now available to you. So if you click on that application, it's going to open up in a new window, a PDF application, and there we have all of the information that the applicant filled out when they applied. So this is really something that I'm so glad that we're now offering, because before landlords were having to then have an applicant fill out a separate paper application if they were applying with My Screening Report, because landlords weren't getting any of the applicant information. So this is nice. It lives right here in your landlord account. This entire application link is the application that also shows the authorizations and disclosures that they agreed to. So if you were to ever get audited and somebody said, I didn't give you permission to pull my report, you have proof right here through each one of these documents that they did agree to these things, and there's their signature, their electronic signature. So there's the full legal document for you to reflect on. So now I can look at the report. I'm going to click on this view report button. And here are the reports. We've got the credit on this tab, and then you would click the background report on this tab, and it will give you the full report with all the background information. And once you have decided whether or not to rent to this applicant, if you're done and you want to move them to the archives tab, all you have to do is click this little button here and the archive button comes up, or you can just click this archive link over here and it'll automatically move that over to your archives tab to clean out your inbox. So you can kind of organize your application screenings. If I accidentally archived it and I don't want it to be archived, I can go to the archive tab and click unarchive. And now it's back in pending. So pretty simple, but it does give you a little bit more transparency and flexibility around the product. And with that, I think it might be helpful to go ahead and open up to questions. I can stop sharing my screen, or I can continue to share it in case we need to use it for reference.
Why don't you keep it up for right now, Megan?
Okay.
I've got a couple questions here. I've got from Steve. Can they mail their application fees and pay with a check?
They cannot. It's only an online payment, so it would need to be debit, credit, or debit or credit card with Visa, MasterCard, or American Express, and Discover possibly too.
Okay, and then the second part of that, can an applicant complete this application from a smartphone easily, or does it need to be done on a computer?
That's a really good question. And one thing I've learned, I will say, to be transparent, yes, they can complete the application from a smartphone. One thing that we're finding that applicants get hung up on, depending on what their smartphone, what kind of smartphone they're using is, what kind of browser and what their browser setting is settings are on their smartphone. We do find that there are times when an applicant gets hung up after they pay for their report and authenticate, the screen goes blank. Like they're not seeing the pop-up that would redirect them to the part where they see their credit report. And so what happens is they think that they're done, and they're not done. They haven't actually ordered their report by looking at their credit report. So what has happened in a few instances is an applicant, it could be a couple of days, and the landlord will email us and say, hey, this process, we're seeing that they haven't ordered their report. And when we go in and look, we can see that the applicant hasn't ordered it. And when we follow up with the applicant, they've explained that the screen it didn't redirect them. So I think some smartphones it works, but again, because there are so many variables when you're using online products, I would say for the best results, you would recommend a laptop or a desktop, or for if they're using a smartphone, then just to let them be aware that if they get the blank screen, they need to log back in so that they can proceed with the process.
Okay. Another question from Barb. So you are allowed to ask for a social security number on an application. Is that because it's an invite? I thought we couldn't ask because citizenship is a protected class now.
Yes, that's a really good question, Barb. Because this is an online product and this is the way that the credit bureaus verify identity, because you have to have a social security number to verify your identity, this system asks for a social security number. So you do raise a really good point with the question about the Washington legislation that was recently passed. But as far as we know, at this point, this is still a legitimate ask because of the type of service that it is.
And in answer to that, Barb, yes, you can ask for a social security number. That's not the issue. The law prohibits you from denying an applicant because they don't have a social security number. So say you have a legal resident who's allowed to work in the United States but does not have a social security number. You have to screen them through some other manner. I've done this myself. They can have an ITIN number, an individual taxpayer number, or you need to pay more attention to references, employers, that kind of thing. You cannot simply say you don't have a social security number, so I can't rent to you. That is what is illegal.
Good point, Jody.
Okay, another question. Do you make recommendations as to whether we should rent to them or not?
We do not. Just like before, we don't collect criteria and make a recommendation. And a big reason for that is because the recommendation would be on the report. And because it's a reusable report, if they went to another landlord to apply because they were denied from you, it would already be unfairly showing that they were denied somewhere else. So we don't offer the recommendation.
Okay, and then in speaking to that, so a landlord cannot customize their criteria on how to screen the applicant?
Correct. There's no criteria associated with my screening report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, another question. Does the applicant and landlord have to unlock their Experian credit file? This is in the event that a landlord has a credit freeze.
Good point, and very good question. Yes, temporarily, when you go to authenticate, you do need to unlock your Experian credit profile. You can lock it right back up right after you authenticate.
Okay. And that's in other platforms I've used, because we have a credit freeze on our files too. I've always had to do that in order to be verified. So yeah, that's a good question.
It's one of those things that it's like, oh, it's such an inconvenience, and I get it. It's an inconvenience, but I applaud people who keep their credit profiles locked up, especially every day we hear more and more about fraud. So the inconvenience, I would say, is definitely worth it in the long run.
One good thing in that respect is that Washington no longer charges you. They used to charge you
Yes.
every time you had to lift it and then refreeze it.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
that's nice that they finally got that passed where, so you just have to deal with the inconvenience, but there's not the
Right.
cost associated with that. So
Yeah, that's kind of outrageous that they were charging for it, actually.
that's Washington for you. Okay, another question. This person said, I recently did one. The credit report and the criminal background report are not printable. The printable
Mhm.
part now is only the 2 pages of the basic application. Can you make the credit and criminal reports printable?
Yes, very good question, comment. So yes, it is not printable like it was before. There's good and bad. One of the things is that before, a lot of the problems people were running into is because they were automatically generated into a PDF format, and people would have problems with their PDF viewer, and so they weren't able to view the reports. So now we have the reports, this system has them so that they are in the UI frame, so that anyone who is logged into their system, regardless of their PDF viewer, can see the report. The downside is that it's not an easy task to print. However, I will share a workaround that we have discovered. And before I do share that, I do want you to know that I've had multiple conversations with our developer, and they're very responsive to the needs of our customers. And I've shared that this is a source of pain for people where they don't love the fact that it's not super easy to print the report. What you can do, and first of all, this is only accessible in My Screening Report is accessible in any browser, best used in Chrome or Firefox, I would say. But for printing purposes, if you use the Firefox browser, you can then print the report. What you do, I'm not in a Firefox browser, I'm in Chrome. That's my browser of choice, but I'll just show you. What you can do is if you go to the report and you right click and you go to print, it will allow you to print the frame, and it'll allow you to print the report in its entirety. I have tested this multiple times. I've tested it in multiple browsers, and I tend to test it frequently because I keep hoping that there will be a browser update in Chrome that will then make it so that you can print in Chrome also. Right now, if I were to do it, it would only print the first page of the report. But in Firefox, if you go to the background report, you can print all the pages of the background report. If you go to the credit report, you can print all the pages of the credit report. You just have to put your browser on the report and right click, and then you would select print. Not ideal, but it is a solution.
All right. Next question. Is this a Washington state only product?
Good question. No, our offices are based in Seattle, and so Washington state is the state that it's most heavily used in, but we are seeing it begin to be used more frequently in other states. This is a nationwide product. You can use it anywhere.
But when you run the report, you're looking for criminal history across the country, right? In
Absolutely.
all states. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Automatically, we're doing what we do when we do our searches is we look at the information the applicant provides to see where they're coming from. We look at their credit report. On their credit report, there's an address history. And then, as I mentioned, we also do that social security number trace history. So we can see any other states that the applicant has lived in. And we will do specific state searches for eviction and criminal records. And then on top of that, we also do a blanket on all of our applicants, no matter if they lived in one state or multiple. We automatically then put a blanket of a national criminal search on top of that as well.
And then, so how does that comply with states that prohibit criminal background checks, like California, where some of that, I believe they passed those laws where you can't look at a criminal history, and
they make it very hard to access public records.
Okay.
And so what we do is we will run searches wherever we can. The nationwide searches search whatever states allow. States like California are challenging in that even if a criminal record search is ordered, we may not be able to get as much information, even if anything is returned, which is why we do recommend that you don't just rely on a basic report, that you're using the eviction record searches, that you're looking at the rental and employment verifications as well, in hopes that we might find other information that would flag the application if necessary. The other thing I do want to point out too, mentioning criminal records, is, as everybody knows, Seattle has the Fair Chance Housing Act, and we are seeing other municipalities have rumblings of that possibility, not necessarily even in Washington state, but I know like Cook County in Illinois has passed some similar legislation. So we do offer reports that do not look at criminal records so that landlords can be in compliance and still use MyScreeningReport.
Okay, that's good to know. Do you actually contact the applicant's employer, or do you use their stated income?
If we do our best to contact the employer. This is always a good question, and it's something that as time goes on, it's more important for landlords to be aware. Employers make it difficult often to obtain employment verifications. So we will absolutely contact the employer and try to get a hold of someone and do an employment verification. One thing that we are running into more and more is that employers are utilizing a third party to verify employment. And that kind of, then we've run into a brick wall, because you generally have to have a PIN or something to access information. And then of course, those third parties charge anywhere from $25 to $40 to just get verification of salary. In which case we will just put a note on the file that says that they utilize a third party, and that we recommend that the applicant share pay stubs and tax records. But we do make every attempt to reach an actual person and do an employment verification.
Yeah, I found it difficult when I've tried to do that and they use a third party. I've never once had a PIN that it has worked.
No.
So
Yeah.
in that case, I just put it back on the tenant. I said, I'm unable to verify that. So you contact a direct supervisor and have them contact me.
Yeah, that's
and that's been able to work that way. So
yeah.
Is the $49.95 the standard fee, or are there other packages?
Good question. Let me actually pop over to our pricing page and we can take a look at that together. So there are 4 other packages. The most comprehensive is the $49.95, and that includes the credit report with the credit score, eviction search, criminal search, sex offender and OFAC, rental and employment. Then there's our comprehensive without criminal for our Seattle reports. And then we have the basic report and the basic with criminal. And the difference between the 2 basic reports and the comprehensive is the verifications. So the basic reports don't have rental and employment verifications, which also means that those reports are returned quicker. The turnaround time for basic reports is anywhere from 30 minutes to a couple of hours during business hours. And we are open 8:30 to 5:30. And we do have screeners that screen on the weekends as well. So as long as an application is submitted during business hours, or if they submit, in the middle of the night, as some people do, and we'll get that application in the morning and work on it first thing, and it will be returned within 30 minutes to 2 hours. The comprehensive reports, we generally turn around in 1 to 3 days, averaging about 48 to 50 hours turn time.
Okay. Does the credit report show a debt to income ratio?
Good question. I don't believe that it does. Let's look at the demo. I don't believe that it does show a debt to income ratio. You've got the credit score here. This looks a little different because this is a demo, but the gist of the information is here. You do get the financial summary, but I don't think that there is a debt to income ratio. I can follow up on that. I will look at an actual report and just see if that is any different. I want to say no, but I'll double check.
But if not, that's easy enough to figure. You just add up their debts and figure out what their income is, and what
it
you
does
got there. So,
and it is nice that it does provide the summary for you, which makes it easier to do the addition of the debt.
mm-hmm.
Okay. making a note on that.
And then Megan, we have a question where you could provide your contact information, either phone number, email, so people can contact you later.
Absolutely. Let me, since I'm sharing, I'm gonna, makes it hard for me. I'm gonna stop sharing, and in the chat, I'm gonna put my information there. The best email address to reach me at, and I do see these emails, but they also go to a team of people. It's our service email address. So I'm going to put that in here. And if it needs to be directed to me directly, I will see it, or somebody will earmark it for me. But this is also so that if you needed to reach out on the weekend, I don't work on the weekends, but there are folks that do. And so your question will get answered quicker. You don't have to wait for me to come in on Monday morning. And then we just a note right now about calling the office. We're all still remote. And so our phones automatically go to a voice messaging system. You can leave a voice message, we get it, and we will absolutely call you back within fairly quickly, within an hour or so during business hours. So you can either email or you can call our 800 number, which I'll put in here. And you can leave a message as well.
All right there. So you guys, anyone who wants to write down our contact information, feel free. Okay, it looks like we've got 2 additional questions. So are references and others you want info from talked to verbally? So
good question. So what we do is, first of all, it depends on the information that the applicant provides. If the applicant only gives an email address, then we'll reach out via email. Generally, if there's a phone number that's provided, that's the first thing we'll do, is we'll call them and ask for a reference and try to reach them over the phone. But if the landlord prefers to give us information via email, or we do have an online form that we send them where they have that option to just fill out a form and submit it back to us, we will allow them to give us the information whichever way is possible, because, and more comfortable for them, because we want to get the information quickly in a timely manner. But we do typically try phone first. We'll take verifications by phone, email, fax, or through our online form.
okay. And then do you contact previous landlords for reference?
Yes, we do. That's really important. If we have that information, we absolutely do. And if they don't provide a previous landlord, but we find addresses on a credit report or on our social search that are, we find our rental properties, we will try to reverse the listing and get a contact information if possible. And if we can reach out, we will.
Okay, great.
Most people will leave those off.
No.
I'm also going to just right here in the chat, here is the link, the BROA link too, for signing up, to make sure that you're signing up through the association.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. All right. Well, are there any other questions from our members?